Oh my God, my daughter is going to die. That was my only thought as our car spun out of control toward the oak tree. My little girl was screaming in the back seat, confused, scared, and helpless. And in that moment, I felt helpless too. The migraine had struck me completely out of nowhere, but it was so severe that I couldn't even see. Instead, all I could do was listen to the sound of shattering glass and the terrified shrieks of my little girl. When my vision did finally come back, though, what I saw made my heart freeze in my chest. A large branch from the oak tree had pierced right through the front windshield and come within 2 inches of stabbing her through the head. Hi, my name is Jenny Appleton. In May of 2012, a crippling migraine struck me while driving my 4-year-old daughter Courtney home from preschool, and it almost killed both of us. It was one of the most horrifying experiences of my life, but it was also the catalyst that led to a major scientific breakthrough, a completely natural and 100% effective treatment protocol that can cure even the worst cases of chronic migraine. Something that doesn't require any doctor visits at all, but that will give you back the freedom you thought you'd lost forever, and that I will be sharing with you right inside the brief presentation you're now viewing. In the following few minutes, you'll see why the secret to this natural migraine cure is a chemical that's already inside your brain, and how by simply balancing this brain chemical, which anyone can do without the use of medications, injections, or any other alternative therapies, you can permanently eliminate even the most crippling migraine headaches from your life in as little as 4 weeks from today. In fact, while you probably think this sounds almost too good to be true, the migraine curing method I'm about to reveal to you has already been proven effective in dozens of studies by the leading researchers across the world. And to date, 114,223 Americans have used this migraine-stopping solution that you're about to be given to say goodbye to even their worst headaches. Now don't worry, I'll give you everything you need to start using the same natural and drug-free protocol in just a second. But before I do that, I'm sure you're probably wondering who I am, and how a heart-stopping and nearly fatal accident led to the discovery of a revolutionary way to defeat migraines forever. So like I mentioned, my name is Jenny Appleton, and 2.5 years ago, one of my crippling migraines nearly caused my daughter Courtney's head to be split in half, literally. What made the whole event so much more terrifying was the fact that this migraine seemed to appear out of nowhere. One moment I was driving our family station wagon, talking to Courtney and hearing her giggle as she shared all of the things that happened to her at school that day. I remember looking into the rearview mirror periodically as I drove and seeing her dangling legs over the seat with that big smile she always seemed to have attached to her face. It was a beautiful late spring day. The sun was shining and everything was perfect. Then suddenly, it wasn't. I felt a dull ache in the back of my head, which wasn't that unusual. I'd been suffering from migraines since about the age of 16, and they were almost always preceded by this type of distant ache. But while at first I was just mildly frustrated about the fact that I'd probably get hit by another migraine later that evening, my frustration soon turned to absolute terror when within a minute of that first ache, it was as if a tidal wave of pain was unleashed into my head, flooding my brain with a pulsing and pounding that was worse than anything I'd ever experienced in my life. In a weird way, I almost felt like I was drowning because of the pressure, and that's when my vision started to go. All it took was the blink of an eye for the road in front of me to be replaced with 1,000 flashing lights, and in a panic, I hit the brakes and tried to pull off to the side of the road. But I jerked the wheel too hard, and suddenly we were spinning out of control. I'll never forget the way Courtney screamed in sheer horror, or the deafening smash as we hit the oak tree, or the feeling of shattered glass covering my body. Even after the impact, it took another 3 minutes before my vision started to recover. All the while, I sat there blindly groping in the back seat for my daughter, calling her name and asking her if she was okay, but helpless to do anything but listen to her uncontrollable shrieks and sobs. Then, when the light spots finally faded away and my vision returned, what I saw made my heart stop. A large branch from the oak tree, the one that had shattered the windshield, had been driven right through the length of my car, stopping an inch short of stabbing my sweet Courtney's skull. She almost died, and it was all my fault. That's all I could think about, even after the paramedics arrived on the scene, and the totaled car was towed away, and my husband Richard had driven us safely back home. She almost died, and it's all my fault. I couldn't get that thought out of my head, and from that point on, I entered a deep and overwhelming state of depression. It wasn't just the accident that was making me so devastated. It was the fact that it had been caused by a wrenching migraine that I simply couldn't avoid or cure. For my entire adult life, I'd been suffering from these brain-splitting headaches, and it felt like I was destined to continue living in misery forever. If you're watching this, and you suffer from frequent or even occasional migraines, you know just how imprisoning the feeling can be. How the headaches seem to strike at random and last for hours or even days. And how the frequency of your migraines isn't even the worst part. It's the severity and viciousness with which they attack. It wasn't uncommon for me to become nauseous after being struck with a migraine, to be brought to my knees and actually vomit because of the vertigo and dizziness I experienced, or to shut myself up in a dark room for days, unable to perform even the simplest task, like driving to the grocery store, or sending an email, or going to my daughter's first school play. Because let's face it, we're all slaves to our migraines. We can never live a life that's free from worry, and they always seem to strike at the worst possible times. On vacations, while family is in town, or while you're at work. It's so absolutely miserable. But what other options are there? Undoubtedly, you've already tried prescription medications, and you already know how wildly ineffective they are. In fact, everyone from the National Health Institute to the pharmaceutical conglomerates who make their drugs is on record as saying that, at best, these pills work for some people some of the time. And honestly, even that's a stretch. Do you know a single person whose migraines have been cured by medications or drugs? Me neither. Then there are the alternative treatments. The injections, the biofeedback, the acupuncture, you name it. But again, not only are all of these therapies costly and not covered by your insurance, they flat out don't bring any of us real, permanent relief. Well, just like you, I'd tried everything to cure my migraines and nothing had worked. It seemed like my situation was hopeless, and I felt trapped. I became terrified of even leaving the house, because what if I was driving my daughter Courtney again and I had another sudden migraine attack and crashed? Or what if it struck me while we were in a crowded shopping center and I couldn't see and she wandered off into the parking lot? My life had become a living nightmare, and I quickly fell into a deep, serious depression. So bad that 3 months after the accident, I finally caved and went to see a clinical psychiatrist. My husband pleaded with me that for my daughter's sake, I try going on an antidepressant, something that would help me at least numb the depression and enable me to be there for her in the way that she needed. And so suddenly there I found myself, sitting on a long couch with a clinical psychiatrist named Diane Finch staring back at me. My first impression of Diane was that she was extremely nice, well-dressed, and very bright. And she spent more than 30 minutes asking me about my depression and what I thought was causing it. I told her all about the accident, and how my crippling migraines made me feel like I was no longer a complete human being. I mentioned how they always kept me from spending time with my loved ones, and how they even made me feel like I was a slave to the violent whims of my body. Well, Diane seemed very empathetic to everything, and at the end of the appointment, she wrote me a prescription for an antidepressant, which I went and got filled on the way home. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm telling you all of this, and I promise there actually is a very good reason. You see, even though I didn't realize it at the time, the antidepressant I was prescribed was the first clue in a puzzle that, once finally solved, would cure my migraines forever. Let me explain. Over the following month, I took my antidepressant every day as I was supposed to, but I didn't get much happier. Instead, I just felt numb to the world. I didn't care about anything. And while things didn't upset me, I didn't feel any joy either. I was also putting on weight, having trouble sleeping, and constantly feeling exhausted. And I thought to myself, this is no way to live. So I told Diane how miserable I was during our follow-up appointment, and she prescribed me a new medication to try. But the side effects remained. And between September 2012 and December 2012, I tried a new medication every single month without any results. Finally, I'd had enough, and during my first appointment with Diane in January of 2013, I told her that I was through with using these worthless drugs and that I'd rather be depressed than have no feelings at all. She said she understood, but asked me to try one more medication. She said it was still considered experimental, but that it showed a lot of promise. What made it different from the other drugs, Diane explained, was that it focused exclusively on serotonin. Serotonin is the chemical in your brain that makes you feel happy, she said, so I'm hopeful this will help. Well, even though I didn't hold out much hope, I agreed to give this new drug a try for 30 days. After this, though, I told her, I'm done. At first, the results were just as disappointing as all the others. I still felt numb, I was still gaining weight, and I had zero sex drive whatsoever. And as I neared the end of those 30 days, I was ready to tell Diane that I was finished, and that I refused to try a single additional medication. But then I realized something remarkable. In the 30 days since I'd started taking this serotonin-increasing drug, I hadn't experienced a single migraine. That was extremely unusual for me. as I normally have 6 to 10 migraines per month, with each one lasting anywhere from several hours to several days. And when I next saw Diane, I told her about this unexpected side effect of the medication. She was just as intrigued as I was. She asked me to keep trying the drug for another month, and that meanwhile, she was going to do some research and see if there were any other cases of the medication helping with migraines. So for another 30 days, I stayed on the drug. And for another 30 days, I didn't have a single migraine, which brought the running total to an incredible 60 days of being headache-free. During our next appointment, I shared these results with Diane, and she became so excited that she nearly fell out of her chair. She said she'd been poring over research about the drug she'd given me, and that dozens of other users had also reported a reduction in their migraines. Not only that, Diane said, but I think I've actually pinpointed the reason why this drug is stopping your migraines from happening. And with that, Diane proceeded to share a profound piece of breakthrough scientific research with me that is so powerful. If you and I can work together to share it with American people, we can ultimately cure every single case of chronic migraines in the world. As you recall, Diane started, the drug you're on works by increasing your brain's production of serotonin. That's the chemical in your brain responsible for happiness. Increasing serotonin is nothing new, and antidepressants have done that for years. But here's where things get really interesting. Very recently, scientists at universities and medical centers across the country have started to notice a strong link between your brain's serotonin levels and the onset of migraine headaches. It's actually fascinating. There are reports on this from Johns Hopkins, the University of Maryland, the National Center for Biotechnology Information, and many others. And every single one of those reports shows that your serotonin levels drop dramatically right as your migraine headaches begin. Further, when this happens, it causes something called the trigeminal system, which is the nerve that runs from your temples to your jaw, to release a vicious chemical into your brain. Specifically, the chemical that gets released is a neuropeptide called CGRP, and it travels to your brain's outer covering and relentlessly attacks it, which is what causes the terrible pain associated with your migraines. So I'm thinking that this has to be the reason why the drug I gave you helped your migraines. It's keeping your serotonin levels steady, which means that pain chemical in your head called CGRP isn't getting released. And without that CGRP, you don't have head pain. Does that make sense? Well, as Diane finished speaking, I thought about what she'd just said. If serotonin levels drop when migraines start, then I could understand how maintaining higher levels of this chemical could help. That part made sense. But it did seem like something was missing here. Because if so many antidepressants already increase serotonin production, wouldn't someone have noticed by now that these drugs were also stopping migraine headaches? I asked Diane exactly that, and again her eyes just lit up as if she was a kid in a candy store. That's a great question, Jenny. Really smart of you to notice that. And the answer is yes, they would have noticed it, if it had actually worked. But the thing is, all of those other antidepressants were only doing half of the work necessary to cure migraines. They did help with serotonin levels, but they weren't doing anything to help destroy that pain-causing neuropeptide called CGRP I was telling you about. You see, all of this new research that's coming out is showing that sufferers of chronic migraines tend to have much higher levels of CGRP in their brain. And it's almost as if your brain is a seesaw. When your serotonin levels go down, the CGRP gets released and it causes migraines. But when CGRP levels are too high, serotonin levels drop and you get migraines. That's what makes the drug you're on different. I've identified several key enzymes, minerals, and amino acids inside this medication that are proven to reduce or destroy CGRP levels in the brain. But what's so funny is I don't think the maker of this drug has any idea that it helps with migraines too. They're just using these chemicals as fillers in their pills. In reality, though, the chemical fillers they're using seem to be destroying CGRP and eliminating migraines. So it looks like you may have something really incredible here, Jenny. The cure to your migraines after all. As Diane finished speaking, my first thoughts were pure joy and excitement. I'd been suffering from migraines for decades, and they'd made me a slave. They had crippled me, and they nearly killed my daughter. And so the prospect of being permanently free of them was absolutely thrilling. But then I realized something that brought me back down to earth, and snapped that feeling of joy into pieces. Even if this experimental drug did help with my migraines, which it appeared to do, taking it would mean also having to deal with its side effects for the rest of my life. The numbness, the feelings of lethargy, the lack of a sex drive, and never feeling truly happy. All of which meant I'd still be a slave, just to a different master. So while I thanked Diane for all of her time spent helping me and pretended I was really happy, By the time I got home from her office, I was just as depressed as ever. That night, as my husband and I ate dinner, I told him all about my conversation with Diane and how even though this medication I was on appeared to be a cure for my migraines, I still felt like it was an unfair trade-off, and how I just wanted to crawl into a dark hole and start crying. Well, I expected him to be empathetic, to understand and to express his sympathy, which is why I was outraged by his response. My husband looked me dead in the eyes and said, "It's time you stop feeling sorry for yourself, Jenny. You have a solution right in front of you and you're too full of your self-pity to notice it." What a jerk, I thought. He's not inside my head. He doesn't understand how I feel. It's easy for him to say all this. I lost my temper and snapped. I told him if he was on my medication, he'd be upset too. But what he said next was such a brilliant and obvious insight. It was as if I'd suddenly been shaken awake from a dream I didn't know I was having. "Why do you need this medication, Jen? Why can't you just naturally increase your serotonin levels? And why can't you just get a list of the ingredients in your drug? Find the ones that destroy the CGRP and find a way to get them into your daily diet." I was speechless. My initial reaction was just to say no, and I started trying to think of reasons why that wouldn't work. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that in theory, what my husband was saying did make sense. After all, I already knew from my own research that a lot of foods and supplements were supposed to help boost my brain's serotonin. So if I could just find out what those CGRP-stopping chemicals in the drug I was taking were, then see if they were also contained in any natural foods or supplements, why wouldn't I be able to get the same exact results as with my medication while avoiding all of the side effects? So the next morning I called Diane and told her what I wanted to do, and asked her if she could get me a list of the chemicals in the drug I was taking. Diane said she loved the idea, and that afternoon I received a 3-page email from her, listing all of the ingredients in the pharmaceutical drug I was taking. She also included a separate list containing the chemicals in the drug that were linked directly to stopping CGRP. And she even typed out another list that had dozens of natural foods, extracts, and herbs I could take to increase my serotonin levels. "These are all the ingredients you'll need," Diane said at the end of the email. "But figuring out the right combination is something you'll have to test on your own. Let me know if you need anything else from me." And with that, I stopped taking the antidepressant drug I'd been prescribed and began using myself as a human guinea pig. The really good thing was that even though CGRP was such a violent chemical, something that travels through nerves to attack your brain covering, which causes those debilitating and pulsing migraines that destroy your life, the organic chemicals inside the medication I'd been taking were nothing but some basic minerals, enzymes, and amino acids. Even better, as I began to do my own research, I realized that those minerals and enzymes could be found in tons of foods and supplements, and that none of them were at all expensive. I could buy most of them at my grocery store for less than $10. It was also the same thing with serotonin. There were dozens of naturally occurring chemicals and enzymes out there that had been scientifically proven to stabilize serotonin levels in the brain. And again, they could all be found in the foods and supplements available at my local grocery store, which meant that all I needed to do was find the right combination of CGRP inhibitors and serotonin boosters, and my migraines should be as good as gone. Easy, right? Not exactly. A week into my tests, I got struck by the first violent migraine I'd had in months, and it rendered me completely helpless for more than 3 days. And over the following 2 months, I was struck by 5 additional head-pounding, nausea-inducing migraines, to the point where all I wanted to do was give up. In fact, I probably would have just waved the white flag and quit if it hadn't been for my daughter Courtney. Every time I looked outside and saw her playing with her toys in the backyard, or heard her laugh in delight, or felt her little arms wrap around me in a warm, love-filled hug, I realized that if I didn't follow through with this, I would never be able to be the mother to her that she deserved. I would always be missing her school events, her softball games, and our family vacations. And she would grow up to resent me, wondering why her mom couldn't just be normal like everyone else's. So I kept rushing forward and experimenting. And finally, on May 24th, 2013, almost a year to the date of the accident that nearly cost my daughter her life, I did a double take when I realized that I hadn't had a migraine in over 21 days. What's funny is that I'd actually been feeling so good that I hadn't even noticed it had been 3 weeks until I looked at the calendar. But as soon as I did, I began pouring through my notes. I analyzed the combinations of serotonin increasers and CGRP inhibitors that I'd been using over that period of time, and then continued to do exactly what I'd been doing ever since my last migraine struck. Well, imagine my feeling of joy as another month went by with no migraines, then another month, then another month, until suddenly it had been a full 6 months, and my migraines were simply nowhere to be found. It was as if I had my life back and the feeling of relief I experienced was absolutely overwhelming. I mean, imagine how good it would feel to go half a year without having a single migraine, or the vision problems and nausea that go along with them. Well, that's exactly what I was now experiencing. And all it had taken was adding a few certain foods and supplements to my diet. Things that contain the minerals, amino acids, and enzymes needed to destroy CGRP. And that I could buy at my grocery store for about $10 total. Thrilled, I called Diane to share the good news. She said she was incredibly happy for me and asked if I could send her a copy of my treatment protocol so she could review it. I told her no problem and typed up everything into a neat little guide, which included the foods and supplements I'd added to my diet, plus how I was combining them and in what portions, and emailed it to her. Then over the following 2 months, Diane gave my natural migraine treatment protocol to dozens of her patients. She also shared it with several of her colleagues so that they could give it to their patients too. And on top of that, Diane sent what I'd created to several clinical researchers she knew, because she said she wanted them to validate the science behind the combinations of amino acids, enzymes, and minerals I was using, so we could know for sure if my method was truly legitimate. Well, across the board, the results were astounding. Combined, Diane and her colleagues gave my guide to 437 severe migraine sufferers. Out of those, 435 people reported 0 migraines during their first month of use, while 2 people reported having 1 mild migraine. Even more amazingly, in a 6-month follow-up survey, every single one of the 437 people who had used this migraine treatment plan said they hadn't had a single migraine in at least 5 months. Meanwhile, the scientific researchers who had been reviewing my migraine method wrote back to us with the results of their study. They said that the scientific treatment protocol I had created was scientifically sound and should be made available to everyone who suffers from migraines. And now, armed with hundreds of real-life success stories, plus a huge body of scientific research showing my method worked, I felt like the only logical next step was to start getting this migraine treatment manual to as many additional Americans as I possibly could. So I partnered with Diane, and together we took this treatment protocol to the editors of the leading medical journals in the world, and their response felt like a huge, giant slap across my face. Sorry, they said. Your research is perfectly sound and there is no arguing with the results you're seeing, but here's the truth. Our funding for research and supplies comes from the pharmaceutical companies. It would cost those companies billions of dollars in lost sales if we published this. And they would immediately cut off funding to our universities and possibly even try to sue us. So we hope you understand why we can't help you. We have to look out for our careers and our families. Well, certainly I did not understand. And more than once I lost my temper and flat out called some highly decorated doctor a coward to their face, much to Diane's embarrassment. Ultimately, however, I realized that this wasn't worth arguing with them. And that instead, my only real choice was to take the migraine treatment protocol I'd discovered, edit it into a very powerful but easy-to-follow guide, and make it available directly to the public right from this website. So that's exactly what I did. And here's how you can download your copy of the guide right now. I called this treatment protocol the Migraine Protocol. Inside, you'll be shown the enzymes, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and other organic chemicals that stabilize your serotonin levels and destroy CGRP. You can think of these enzymes and other organic chemicals as your building blocks, and once you've added them to your diet in the specific way I show you inside the Migraine Protocol, they act like a 1,000-foot-high dam, something that blocks pain-causing chemicals from flooding into your brain. Now, to make building this dam simple, I've also gone ahead and provided a comprehensive list of fruits, veggies, meats, and supplements right inside this guide. These are things that contain those different amino acids, vitamins, and minerals that you need, and you can find all of them at your grocery store for about $10 total. Then, I show you how to combine these different organic chemicals in the proper way, including what portion of each item to add to your diet each day and at what time, so that you simply have to follow the basic instructions you're given inside this step-by-step treatment protocol, and you gain permanent relief from your migraine headaches within the next 4 weeks. Guaranteed. Imagine. No more worrying about when that ticking time headache bomb inside your head will explode again. No more worrying about whether your next family vacation will be ruined because you can't even leave the hotel. And no more being afraid that a crippling migraine will strike when you're far away from home, leaving you helpless and totally at the mercy of total strangers. You, your spouse, your friends, or anyone else who suffers from headaches can regain their independence with the Migraine Protocol. And all it takes are a few easy steps and about $10 in groceries. To date, more than 114,000 Americans just like you have already used this permanent migraine treatment to live every day 100% headache-free. People like Jim Schwab of Frostburg, Maryland, who writes, "As a sufferer of migraines for more than 30 years, I was highly skeptical when I first saw your presentation. I tried all kinds of medication and alternative therapies, so it didn't seem possible that a simple and natural cure could really work. But because I was so desperate, I decided, what the heck, and gave this guide a try. Thank God I did. It's now been 7 months and I haven't had a single migraine. It's like I have my life back." And Angela Bateman of St. Paul, Minneapolis, who writes, "My migraines actually didn't start until I was in my early 40s. At first they were just a mild inconvenience, but over time they grew more and more severe. By the time I reached my mid-50s, my headaches were so painful that I constantly wanted to just crawl under a rock and die. Sorry if that sounds dramatic, but I was miserable. My husband didn't know what to do. My kids didn't know what to do. And I didn't know what to do. But then a friend of mine shared your migraine protocol with me and everything changed. I simply cannot believe how well this treatment works. Suddenly, I'm no longer living in pain. I can enjoy my life with my husband again. And I'm happier, healthier, and more active than I've been in a decade. Thank you." While Saul Cruz of Big Sur, California says, "How is it possible that I could spend thousands of dollars on Botox injections and other alternative treatments with no results, only to find out that a $10 solution eliminates migraines forever? I have no idea, but that's exactly what my experience has been using the migraine protocol. Within 21 days, my headaches stopped, and they haven't come back since. I just wish I'd known about this sooner." Now, given just how powerful the migraine protocol is, it should be pretty clear what makes this guide so revolutionary, and why Diane and I originally planned on charging $270 for access to this easy-to-follow treatment protocol. After all, that's a lot less than the hundreds or even thousands of dollars that Botox injections or acupuncture or other experimental migraine treatments will cost you. And it sure beats the migraine drugs you get at the doctor. Pills that are not only totally ineffective, but that are also filled with hundreds of dangerous side effects, like nausea, increased heart rate, and even bleeding in the brain. And that still cost you about $300 per year in copay costs, even though they don't work. Compared to that, doesn't $270 for the comfort of knowing you will never suffer from another migraine as long as you live sound pretty reasonable? Most people seem to think so, which is why they're often surprised when they get to this website, watch this presentation, and then find out that they don't have to pay anywhere near that $270 for access to the migraine protocol. You see, even though I think the retail price Diane and I set is extremely fair, I also realize that getting you my cure isn't about money. It's about freeing you and anyone else you know from the painful and crippling headaches that have been ruling your life for decades. So I simply wouldn't be able to sleep with myself at night if my own greed kept you from getting this migraine cure. Which is why, instead of charging the $270 retail price for access to this treatment protocol, or $170, or even $70, which is a total steal, you can claim your copy of the migraine protocol today for just $39. To get started, simply click the yellow button you see below this presentation. You'll then be given instant access to the entire program, including a comprehensive list of foods and supplements that contain the different chemicals you need to add to your diet and explicit directions for how to combine them. And you'll be able to view everything right from your computer, tablet, or smartphone, or download the guide and print out copies for all your friends and family. Additionally, your investment today will be covered by a full 60-day, 100% money-back guarantee. Which means all you have to do right now is give the migraine cure a test run by clicking the yellow button you see below this video. Once you do that, you'll gain instant access to the food lists, the combination guides, and everything else you need to cure your migraines. The entire treatment protocol will cost you about $10 to use, and I guarantee that if you follow this guide faithfully, you will enjoy permanent relief from your migraines in just 4 short weeks. And if for any reason you change your mind about using this guide, just send an email to the address I give you inside the guide, and I will immediately refund your entire investment with no questions asked. So in other words, I'm taking all of the risk here, but that's completely fine with me. Like I already said, this isn't about money, it's about your freedom. Freedom from crippling headaches, freedom from the fear that comes with wondering when your next migraine will strike, and freedom from pain. All it takes to get started is a click of that yellow button you see below this video, and you'll have a full 60 days to decide if the migraine protocol is right for you or not. But if you're ready to cure your migraines, you do need to act quickly. This presentation is almost over, and I can't guarantee how long I'll be able to keep this website on the internet. Even now, as you watch this, Diane and I are both getting harassing phone calls from the legal departments of some of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. They're saying that we're hurting their business, and that if we don't voluntarily stop sharing this migraine cure with people, they will force us to stop. Even though these pharma bullies have absolutely zero grounds for doing so, neither Diane nor I can afford to be dragged into a legal battle with a billion-dollar drug cartel, which means that as soon as they do bring legal action against us, this website has to be taken down, no matter how unjust it is. There simply won't be anything we can do to help you. But why would you even take that chance? Simply click the yellow button you see below this video, and you'll get full access to the entire migraine protocol guide for 2 whole months. Plus, your decision will be covered by a comprehensive 60-day, 100% money-back guarantee. There's flat-out zero risk on your end. Really, you have nothing to lose except your crippling migraine headaches. So go ahead and click that yellow button right now, and we'll see you on the inside. Sincerely, Jenny Appleton. Hey, still there? No worries. I bet you probably have some questions, right? I've actually compiled a list of the most common questions folks tend to ask me before investing in this guide. So let me go ahead and answer some of those questions for you right now. Why does this migraine protocol work when medications, injections, and other treatments don't? The migraine protocol combines 2 pieces of cutting-edge science and turns them into a single, comprehensive cure. You see, A, scientists now know that your serotonin levels drop dramatically right before you get hit by a migraine. B, they also know that when you have a migraine, your brain releases this pain-causing chemical called CGRP, which is responsible for the pain you feel. So what the migraine protocol does is to provide you with natural enzymes, amino acids, and minerals that stabilize serotonin levels and stop CGRP. That's different than any other migraine treatment protocol out there, and it's why this cure works when others simply don't. 2. Are there any side effects to this treatment? Nope. The migraine protocol is 100% natural and side effect free. 3. Wait, what's going on with that depression drug you were taking? Is this treatment an antidepressant? The migraine protocol is not an antidepressant. However, you may experience a more stable mood and feel happier every day. That's because this treatment restores serotonin levels in your brain, and that's the chemical responsible for happiness. 4. Once I invest in the migraine protocol, what exactly do I get again? Inside, you'll be shown the enzymes, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and other organic chemicals that stabilize your serotonin levels and destroy CGRP. You'll also get a comprehensive list of fruits, veggies, meats, and supplements right inside this guide that contain those organic chemicals. I then show you how to combine these different organic chemicals in the proper way, including what portion of each item to add to your diet each day and at what time, so that you simply have to follow the basic instructions you're given inside the step-by-step treatment protocol. And you gain permanent relief from your migraine headaches within the next 4 weeks. Guaranteed. 5. Speaking about that 4-week thing, is that really how quickly I can expect to eliminate my migraines? Yes. The average time it takes people to eliminate their migraines using this treatment protocol is 4 weeks. That is an average, however. Many people notice their headaches disappear within the first few days. In a few rare cases, you may notice that your migraines are reduced and much less severe right away, but it takes 6 weeks for your migraines to go away forever. That only happens for about 2% of all users, though. 6. Can you remind me of how that guarantee works again? Sure. Once you click that yellow button you see below this screen, you'll get instant access to the migraine protocol. Then you'll have a full 60 days to try everything out and to experience a headache-free life. If for any reason you're not satisfied with your decision, simply send an email to the address I give you inside the guide, and I will quickly refund your entire investment with 0 questions asked. So in other words, your decision is totally risk-free. 7. Okay, I'm ready to rock. How do I get started? To get started, simply click the yellow button you see below this video and go claim your instant access.